Good evening. Hello, sorry, just give me 1 second. My name is Cindy. I'm in Victoria, which is a corporation within the Corporation of Australia. And if you're watching from wherever you're watching, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you. This video will not be just about Australia. This video will be about something that's happening all over the world to all of us. And I've given it the title, if you don't know the destination, the journey doesn't make sense. And there's that old, expression of, it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey. You know what? Let's face it. All of it matters. Both the journey and the destination matter. In this case, however, maybe I should pause and say hello to a few people. Hi Trevor, and hi Chica, and hi Mum, and hi Simon. Nice to see you all on. I got in a little bit earlier tonight. So, the destination. Okay. If we don't know what the destination is, we cannot make sense of the journey we're on to reach it. I think most people would kind of agree with this massive piece of wisdom. Right. So, what I'm driving at is that it's very hard to connect dots and put pieces of the puzzle together when you don't know what the picture on the jigsaw puzzle is meant to be. Like if you do a jigsaw puzzle, you follow the cover of it. You try and match the pieces to what you've been given it's meant to look like. You don't try to pull it all out of thin air and guess where all those pieces go. And this is very much relevant to the situation at the moment. And before I lose any of the normies, and I hope you're watching. So normies, by my definition, means people who are not concerned with conspiracy theories and who think that everything is hunky-dory and that we're going back to normal sometime soon, or even later. So, newsflash, we're never going back to normal. There's no such thing as that anymore. It can't happen because the financial system was so well demolished and decimated, though you don't know it yet, that we can't go back to that normal. Not that really any of us want to go back to that normal. It wasn't a happy place for any of us, to be honest. So before I lose you all, I just want to tell you that there are some conspiracy theorists out there that ask you to trust the plan or trust that they have some secret source of information. But there are a whole lot of us who proclaim you don't have to trust us. We don't want you to trust us at all. We want you to please go and read government documents produced and white papers produced by the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and Gavi, Bill Gates' own, what are we going to call it? Conglomerate, charity, call it whatever you want. This is where we're asking you to look. We're asking you to look at the CDC website. We're asking you to look at the WHO website. We're asking you to look at government websites. It doesn't matter which government. What you need to do is go into your government, wherever you are, and go into the technology sector, into the technology section, and you will find there the plans they have for tomorrow. And that tomorrow is now. So just by way of demonstration, my previous live was based on a document from the Canadian government, as will be tonight's, because you know, anything that happens in Canada happens in Australia, and this is the one that happened to fall into my hands. We're all part of the Commonwealth and we're all in the same boat. And I have seen the Australian government website, and yes, we have all those plans for the technology sector. So, but here's, you know, I've got a nice summary here that I'm going to use. The live that I did before that, I quoted our Prime Minister and the Minister for digital finance, for the digital economy, because we now have a minister for the digital economy, because that, my friends, is the destination. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about the depopulation and a whole lot of other stuff. Yes, they are part and parcel of what's happening, but they're not, you know, the destination, like the end game. It's really important for us to understand the end game, because if we don't understand the end game, then we don't talk about the end game. And all our friends are lost when we talk about slavery, because slavery is an abstraction to a degree. Because if I say to somebody, oh, we're going to be slaves, that person automatically thinks of shackles on our ankles and a huge, you know, boulder and possibly bars behind prison. And that's not going to happen. So as much as that's not going to happen for them, that's not going to happen for us. And it's just a meaningless sort of analogy. So perhaps we need to start talking a lot more about the digital economy and all that means. So the Canadian government sort of did had a working group called Canada Beyond 150s, and they did a paper on capital and debt. And this very much explains what the future will bring. So I'll just sort of read little bits of it. And the first thing they say is, Capital and Debt Research Team, the Canada Beyond 150s Capital and Debt Research Team explored the future of ownership. Remember, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, from the United Nations. That's a direct quote for somebody who doesn't know or hasn't heard that before, from the World Economic Forum. So they're exploring the future of ownership. The team looked at how accessing services rather than conventional ownership could benefit all Canadians. So accessing services just means renting stuff, right? You know how you have an Airbnb and you go and stay at somebody else's place for a night? That's not yours, but you access it, you use it, or you rent a car, or you get in an Uber, or you have a subscription to something. That's what the economy is going to look like. Its proposed policy recommendations include measures that could drive the development of new types of assets and potentially lead Canadians to participate in the access economy. So potentially lead Canadians to participate. I read through the whole paper, and they're well aware that most people will never have enough money to own 2 houses and be able to rent the other one out, okay? And then it goes on to explain the debt situation in Canada now, and how wages have not been able to keep up with rates of inflation and the cost of living. And that would stand true for let's not say every single country in the world, but every single country I'm aware of. All of Western Europe is in this situation. Canada, America, Australia, we are all drowning in debt. And to understand how we're drowning in debt and why we're drowning in debt, then we need to understand the current financial system and how that operates. And so the current financial system is pretty much based on the petrodollar and primary sources of energy, you know, resources like coal and gas and black oil. But unfortunately, the money that's printed by our reserve banks is not pegged to what kind of resources each country holds. So it's not like I've got, you know, 20 tons of oil, therefore I can print X dollars and put that into the economy. That's not how it works. I would be lying if I tried to tell you the date that this happened, but at some point the reserve banks decided, sorry, people are sending me messages. Okay, so the banks decided, well, we're going to print money out of thin air, which is all well and good because that's what a government can do. Each government, each nation has the option, has the luxury to print money, right? Without it being pegged to some resource. Now, for some reason, instead of actually doing that and putting money into the economy with very low interest or even at no interest, depending on, you know, perhaps it was infrastructure, you know, like public infrastructure, it would make sense that the money spent on those projects might be lended at no interest. A country can legally, lawfully do this. However, they gave the right of money printing to private banks. Hang on. Say that again. Yes, countries, nations who could print their own money are going, no, we'd rather lend it from a bunch of private dudes. And so each dollar that is printed in Australia comes with interest, with debt associated with it. So when you think about it, it makes sense as to why we're constantly harping on about growing the economy and growing the economy. The economy has to, by definition, keep growing if every single dollar comes with debt. There is no, you can't ever reach a happy medium and go, yeah, we like it here, it's stable here, let's keep it like this. You can't do that because the money that keeps being printed keeps having interest, and so more money has to be moved around and, you know, change the bank accounts so that it looks like that interest is being paid off. Capital's never paid off, but, you know, we pretend that we're paying off interest. For this reason, we have reached a point of unsustainability. This model of, oh, we're just going to keep printing money out of thin air and we're going to owe those private people money just because, you know, we printed the money. This can't go on anymore because basically the working classes and middle classes in all of the Western world have been brought to their knees. They really have. Millennial people cannot even dream of home ownership, not without winning the lottery. This is, you know, a bygone era. My dad worked one blue-collar job and raised a whole family on it. My mum didn't have to work. You know, like, he paid off a house and fed and clothed and educated 2 children and supported a wife on one wage, 5 days a week, 38 hours a week, plus holidays, plus sick time, plus sick leave, plus. Like, okay, I didn't grow up, you know, with all the luxuries in the world and lots of holidays, but I wasn't really lacking anything. So this is how much times have changed. They've changed so much that 2 people need to be working full-time plus overtime, and they never have enough money for anything. They can barely afford to pay the rent. So it's unsustainable, this model. So because we can't just keep making plastic overseas, ordering plastic landfill from China. I call it landfill because that's how long it lasts. You buy it in the shop, and by the time you get it home, it's broken. So this is what was keeping the economy in that growth mode. They just kept, producing rubbish, and you were buying it, and that was kind of like moving money around, but it's got to a point where it doesn't work anymore. And therefore, we need to collapse this economy. So hold that in mind, that we're moving into a new economy. It wasn't going to happen with somebody saying to us, you know what, guys, forget about home ownership. You're all just going to be renters, and forget about jobs because everything's going to be automated, and, just tough luck. It wasn't going to work. We needed a catalyst. We needed something that would have people forfeiting their jobs and acquiescing to all sorts of things and giving up cash. And it's been really interesting. So I think a lot of people don't understand is that each of the things that our governments and media and educational institutions and think tanks push, really big agendas like climate change. Climate change is one of those things like a Swiss Army knife. It has all these little tools on it. It doesn't serve one purpose. Like its one and only purpose isn't so that you don't drive as much, right? Or so that you use a bicycle, or so that you go on eco holidays. It's not about that. That's the bit they sell you so that you can go along with the story and feel like you're being a good human being. And when you give up that car because you can't actually afford it anymore and you start riding a bike, it's not socially, you're not looked upon as like a fucking loser because you don't have a car and you ride your bicycle. In fact, you're like this really cool hero saving the planet. Because the thing is, children of today are dreaming if they think they're going to have a car, right? They're not going to be like you and me, driving a private vehicle, owning a private vehicle. That's last of the Mohicans at this point. So something like the green agenda comes with so many levels to it and so many facets. It serves so many purposes. It serves the purpose of people going, okay, I'll do without the car, and I'll do without this, and I'll recycle, and I'll have a good reason to yell at people and police them when they don't recycle, or when their car has too many emissions, or they use too much heating or whatever. But it also, it covers the geoengineering project going on, the aerial spraying and all this weird weather that's created, when you put tons and tons of barium and aluminium into the atmosphere and you spray it, and then, you can use frequencies to move water particles and create massive, massive hailstones. And then you go, oh, climate change, it's climate change. It serves that agenda. It hides something else that's happening. It hides the fact that they control the food production with that geoengineering, because they just go, oh, climate change. Or when they want to burn an area because they want to put, train lines in, or they want to actually just move the population from a specific area, well, then we just go, oh, fires, climate change. Climate change is really, really important, because the next lockdowns are actually going to be explained by and justified with climate change. They're going to say you can't travel now because, oh my God, the temperature is rising, the carbon, oh goodness gracious. So you will be locked down by climate change, by this agenda. So it also serves the purpose of, like, we're moving away from petroleum and this and that, which means you're not going to move around. You know, oil and petroleum and gas will be, you know, for exclusive, really important uses, but it won't be for domestic use. Already the Australian government is talking about removing gas cooktops and gas heating, and they were complaining about Victoria being so dependent on gas, which is a really clean energy, by the way. That's how they sold it to us in the 80s, because I remember the 80s, and I remember ads about how clean natural gas was. So if you're as old as I am, think back and remember that each time they have an agenda, they tell you whatever they want so that they can sell you whatever they want. So what's it going to be? Is gas clean or is it not clean? Let's decide. So I've talked about, so I'm explaining that each driver has very many facets. The more you look at it, the more agendas it serves, the more purposes that they use it for. Let's look at, you know, the pandemic and the corona, right? We managed to get people to do away with their lives, right? Like, seriously, they had lives, they had boyfriends, they had partners, they had travel plans. They had, you know, I know people who wanted to get married, who had to cancel their weddings, who had ideas of opening up businesses, or who had just opened up businesses, or who were running successful businesses. All of that just stopped with one thing. Oh, pandemic. Oh my God, look at these two people who dropped dead in China on camera. You never saw a single person dropping dead of Rona on the street. You didn't even see a sick person. Fuck, I didn't hear someone cough for a whole year. People were too scared to cough. They would rather choke to death than cough last year. Flu disappeared. Literally, it disappeared. People don't die of flu anymore. People don't even get sick with flu anymore because the masks work for flu. They just don't work for Rona. So 2 months to flatten the curve turned into closed down businesses in high streets. So high streets are now full of empty shops, which have got big signs of them saying, hey, rent me. Don't do that. And we got people to wear muzzles and distance themselves from their family, and to allow their elderly people to be genocided, I would say, in those homes. I mean, the stories coming out of those homes are horrific. And I'm not talking about the elderly that caught Rona. I'm talking about the people describing what's happened to their parents, and the people that work in those homes, the stories they've had. They are shocking. We dehumanized because we were so afraid of Rona. A boogeyman, something we couldn't see. That's how afraid people are of something they never saw anywhere but on the television. And yet when we tell them, hey, look at those cameras going up. Look at that 5G going up everywhere. You know, people are like, oh, yeah, that's like, they've got nothing to say. But it's like, it doesn't exist. Like, they can't see the things in front of them, and the thing that isn't there to be seen, they believe so wholeheartedly in it. It's scary. It's really scary. So getting back to the end game. The end game will very much be about something called the access economy, described in this document, which is about renting everything. So you're not only going to rent your like vehicle, whenever you need to use a car, you know, you'll just go into your app and go, you know, bring me a car. You won't just be renting a room to sleep in. You will literally be renting the clothes off your back. I'm serious. The largest textile companies, largest retail textile companies have actually already agreed to this. To save, you know, on landfill and not pollute the environment, those really large chain stores, they're not willing to take a profit cut, right, by making fewer clothes. No, the deal is really sweet. They will make fewer clothes, but they will get paid each time you wear them. How cool is that? So when I go in the morning to, you know, and I change 7 times because I don't know what, you know, what's going to look good that morning, I wonder if I'm going to be like charged every time I take it on and put it off. That'll be really interesting. Like, you know, 7 charges because you couldn't decide what you wanted to wear, Cindy. Because there will be embedded sensors in that clothing which tracks it in time and space, and it knows who the wearer is. And so that's how they're going to make money, right? So they'll make fewer clothes, they'll be embedded with sensors, and also they'll be like recyclable. You know, we'll hand them on to the next person and the next. We will be renting the tools. We will be in such a state of insecurity because I'm one of those people that grew up in the era of stability and full-time jobs, but always seemed to be ahead of the curve. I was always getting, you know, the casual and the contract jobs from day dot, from the day they started having contract jobs and contract work. Like, that was me. You know, I was making more money because I was a casual than a full-timer, but I had no rights. I'd forfeited my rights to ever being sick or ever going on a holiday, or if my termination, like if they wanted to terminate me, that I didn't require any sort of notice. Now, we went from full-time work to, you know, that contracting, casual, part-time, whatever version they've got of that now. And now we're moving into something called the gig economy. So just think of a band, you know, that does a gig here and does a gig there, and they never know when they're going to get a gig. They just get paid per piece. Well, the digital economy, that's how things are going to work. So, you know how the checkouts at the supermarket are automated, and you pretty much won't find a waiter anywhere now. There's even robots serving somewhere in Melbourne, literally serving the patrons who are sitting down in tables and chairs. There's a robot that comes out on wheels and delivers the plates so that you don't get Rona. So we know about the Amazon and the supermarkets, that everything inside is automated, right? And so with the little shops disappearing from the high streets, you know, the milk bars and stuff, and everything moving online, because everything is moving online in the digital economy, right? Just like the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, told us. So if everything's moving online and everything is going to be automated, the jobs that we will have will be sitting at home and probably like operating, you know, some piece of machinery through our phones. Doesn't that sound cool? So you can have like a factory job at a chicken, I don't know, plucking factory, and you can pluck chickens all day, but you won't even smell because you'll be doing it from home. And you'll only be competing for this job with everybody else in the world that has a phone. So, you know, we went from manufacturing stuff in our country, like, you know, making cars and bed sheets and all sorts of cool things, underwear. We had our own lemons once upon a time. And then we moved, and then we said, oh no, fuck that. We don't want to work. We want it to come from China. So we offshore, so we had these free trade agreements. Anything that they label free, you make sure you understand, oh shit, I'm going to pay through the nose for this. Okay, because everything is inverted. Free trade really meant, what did it really mean? It really meant the abolition of sovereignty, really. It just meant that they're going to enslave people in a third world country, and they're going to pay them peanuts so that they can make something that you can afford because you're getting really poor. And you won't be working, so you're going to be extra poor. So we went from the economy of full-time work, of manufacturing, of Australian-owned making underwear. We now buy our services from other countries. It's going to get to the point though, right, that we're going to be the third world. Because we're all going to be the third world. Instead of bringing the third world up to the developed country standards of living, it's just going to be easier to sink us all into that shit. So where everything's going to be automated outside. Don't forget you can't really travel anymore if it's not essential because it's not good for the environment. So you'll be home. You'll have your food delivered. You will educate at home. You will work at home because there'll be machines doing even the labor. And if it does require human intervention, you can do it through your tablet. So the 5G towers, they're not for, streaming faster series because those series were going just fine, right? We need all that technology to support the new digital economy, which will be called the access economy because you won't own anything, you'll rent everything. It actually literally talks about social credit rating in here. I should find it. I really should have highlighted it actually, shouldn't I? But anyway, I will find it now. Here we go. Social credit may become a more powerful determinant, of socioeconomic inclusion. Rating a user's credibility/trust, social credit in brackets, as is currently done by Uber, eBay, and many others, is becoming more common. At the same time, new technologies such as blockchain bring new ways of capturing and assessing more information. Together, these developments could lead to new ways of evaluating who should qualify for credit and services. Will it be you? Based on algorithms. Awesome. An algorithm will decide whether you deserve access to that Uber or that tool or that bed or those clothes. How nice. Like when things aren't, when you're not, when something goes wrong. Has anyone tried arguing with an algorithm on FB? I have. So that's the future, people. The future is one that's going to be very antisocial, one where you won't get to travel, one where the circumstances that we lived during lockdown will be the new normal. So not hanging out with friends, not working alongside people, having everything delivered, living your life through the internet, having your friends through the internet, your entertainment through the internet, Therefore, that's why we need all that infrastructure to move all of this data back and forth. Now, did I neglect to mention the Internet of Bodies? Because the Internet of Things is why your fridge has an internet thing on it, as does your dishwasher and your toaster and your aircon, and you've got a smart meter out the side. And if you buy a new car nowadays, you can't even use the GPS on it unless it's hooked up to your phone. And you can't even use the radio either. So a friend of mine in America bought a new car and said, oh, I can't use the GPS and I can't use the radio. It requires my phone. Okay, so the Internet of Things means everything is talking to everything else. All the gadgets. And they're reporting this information. Of course, information goes two ways, right? Information doesn't go just one way. So data goes out and something comes back. What comes back is something called nudging. It might be that your fridge tells you, you had too many Snickers bars today, Cindy. Or Cindy, the scales in the bathroom said you've put on 3 kilograms. I'm just not opening for you now. It'll probably do that. But within the Internet of Things will be the Internet of Bodies. And that's us, human people, being a little bit less human, perhaps subhuman, perhaps hybrids, perhaps genetically modified organisms, because we're going to have sensors in us that communicate with the devices and all of the sensors that are in the environment. And those sensors won't just be limited to the fridge and the microwave. No, they're actually planning on every fucking tree on the planet having a sensor on it. And they're even developing nanotech to put sensors in the soil that grows your food. They will also put sensors in our toilets, literally. This is why they've been talking about, oh, we found COVID in the sewage and we found COVID in the sewage. This is to get you accustomed to the idea that your excrement will actually be diagnosed and looked at and analyzed by, AI or whatever, by your toilet. This is no joke. It sounds insane, but this is in their documents. Don't take my word for it. This is not, you don't have to go to YouTube to see it. You don't have to have somebody like me telling you about it, because if you can read, and if you've, gone to about year 9 or year 10, you can read pretty well. So, and I'm not even going to give you the links because they could be conspiracy links. I could have overwritten those links. No, all you need to do is look at the 17 sustainable goals by the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. Go to your own government's website and check out what's in technology in that section. Start reading. Start reading about finance. See that cash really is disappearing, and it's not because it's germy. Like we said before, we've got one story, one narrative, and we can apply that story to make you believe anything, right? The mask, stopped the flu, but it's not stopping the Rona, and it's 2 weeks, but now it's going to go into 2 years, and it's going to go into... Please, we didn't come down in the last shower, and... I know it's really sensational and really interesting to look at, the vaccine stuff and to keep talking about masks and whether they work or not and whether they're shedding or not. But let's try and get ahead of this somehow, because not enough people are talking about this. Now, if you want some good links, I have made quite a few posts in, the last few posts that provide links to the people who are doing, the real source information, who are actually looking at those NGOs and at those organizations. And Alison McDowell actually does charts where, she links, and all these departments, all these people, all these the banks, the financial institutions. She links them all together so you can actually see, you know, the revolving door. And that's all on the public record. I thank you very much for watching. I wish you a lovely evening if you're in Australia, and a good afternoon if you're in Europe, and a very, very good morning soon if you're in America. Thank you.